Welcome back to another Spirit Island video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how to draft power cards. Now, a lot of players, whenever they draft power cards, what they're looking to do is they want to match the elements on that card with their spirits. And while that's a great beginner-friendly way to draft cards, that's not really the full story. That's only part of the story. Really, there's several factors that I consider when I draft, and I'm going to talk about that right now. The first most important thing while drafting is drafting for effects. Um, Whatever your spirit is looking to do, if I am playing Keeper, I'm looking for that defend. If I'm playing Stone, I'm looking for that fast control. If I'm playing Many Minds, I'm looking for another defender, another fast control, or a support card. So whatever my spirit is doing, I'm looking to draft in a way such that I can have a card that has a useful effect. The second thing is cost. And the difference between a 0 cost and a 1 cost is massive. I see a lot of players, they'll pick up a card like Blooddraws Predators on their spirits because it's on element, but it costs 1. 1 cost cards really need to be excellent. If they're not essential to playing it on that spirit, you should probably pass up on it. And number 3 is going to be elements. This is the order in which, or the order or hierarchy of what I value. So I'm valuing effects mostly, then I'm valuing the cost, then I'm valuing is it on element for me, and actually the last one is it off element. This is when I start drafting cards to play towards major synergies or drafting cards to play for events. And these first 3 points, this is most important. This bottom one, this is where I wouldn't recommend doing this until you get very skilled at the top 3, because this last one will get you into a lot of trouble. Okay, so let's do some sample drafts and explain exactly what I mean. So I'm playing Stone here. I want fast control. That is number 1. That is the most important thing. I'm playing against Russia. Yes, so definitely. Let's draft. We got Mountain Explorer. Oh, this is hilarious because Mountain Explorer is fairly could be problematic. I'll be able to get to Han in this F6 to defend it, but like I said, we want fast control, and let's do our draft. Wow, and I mean, we got really lucky here. Let's look at the left here. So we have Tormenting Ratflies. This is a utility card that's also going to give us fear. It's completely off element, and it costs an energy. Blooddraws Predators, a damage amplifier as well as a utility card that adds beasts. Nature's Connection, a perfect element card. Its utility amplifies innates. And finally, Treacherous Waterways, which is that 0 cost on element fast control. Now, like I said, most importantly, I'm drafting for that effect. So this is what I want. Fast control, and it's Mountain. Literally the perfect card I could ask for here was Treacherous Waterways, because I can disrupt this card and continue my game plan. It also allows me to disrupt my wetlands, which has my beasts, and it's 0 cost, which is my point number 2. And point number 3 is it's on element, has that earth. So this is the dream. Now, just to make this example a little bit more interesting, if I had Enticing Splendor here, because a lot of players, they'll see this, they're like, oh, well, you're Stone. This is your earth card. This is definitely the card to pick. Let's say it's this. Let's say it's Enticing Splendor now. If I told you that this is still the correct pick, this Enticing Splendor, you'd probably call me crazy, right? Because this is your double earth card, right? Yeah, it's definitely Nature's. And I could see arguments for this card. I think this card is very playable here, especially if you're playing in a multiplayer setting. Stone is excellent at being able to give out those support cards. But a card like Enticing Splendor, I would say this card, I'd probably say it's about 50-50, I would say. Just because Enticing Splendor, it's fast control. That's what we want to do with Stone. I want to disrupt this Explorer. I want to push it out. Let's say we got Tour of the Unknown, right? So this is another fast control card. Fast control, it's 0 element. Let's say it looked like this. Now I'm comparing two fast control cards, and they're both 0. The only difference is I have Sun versus Moon. Um, this can target non-blighted lands, while this just targets a land without invaders. I'd probably grab Lure just because it has better elements. It has more elements as well as a little bit more flexibility. Now let's make this interesting as well. We'll make it even more in depth. You can do Delusions of Danger. I'll just keep drafting cards here. Forget that. Let's forget this. And what if it looked like this? So now we're drafting a card that has a very positive effect, but now it has that 1 cost versus the 0 cost natures. Well, now I'd probably lean towards natures is probably 70% versus 30, just because that 1 cost really makes this card I'm not too happy to pick it up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let's actually what I'll do is I'll do a couple more drafts and then we'll switch spirits and do some more drafts. Okay, looking at number 2. So once again, we're drafting for the effect. So we have domesticated animals. This is a defend 5, must target a land with buildings. Call to Migrate, one of the worst cards in the game. It's a 1 energy, move a bunch of Dahan. Weep for what it's lost, 0 energy, some control and the slow, as well as fear. And finally, Thriving Choke Fungus, 1 energy, slow, Badlands, and disease. Just looking at these 4 cards, they're all off elements. Only one of them is a 0 cost card, and that's Weep. So I'm actually fairly upset with this draft, but one of these cards is not like the other. One of these cards is actually fairly decent, and that's Domesticated. And that's because it's a defend 5 that lines up very well into not 3 explorers because it has to have a building, but 2 explorers in a town. It could defend 5 that land. And this is a card that can also create beasts in that end game or mid end game. So it's definitely this card. I know it sucks it's 1 cost, but it has that good effect. Call to Migrate. This effect isn't worth energy because we have it at 0 energy. Weep. We don't really want to generate fear with stone. This is not what the spirit is trying to do. The only reason why I would try to draft this card is because it has that water animal, and that would be playing towards those off element effects. And like I said, this factor number 4, you think about it, but I wouldn't when you're first starting off considering these different things. This is something I'd put towards the very bottom because you don't want to pass up a good card like Domesticated because maybe you're trying to draft towards Tigers Hunting or Sea Monsters. And then Thriving Choke Fungus. This is another card that we just don't need. We don't need to be putting more Badlands down. We already have 2 Badlands cards. So we're going to draft Domesticated because it's a great element card. I always say defend is king. Defensive powers are so strong because the effect is so valuable. Let's do another draft here. Okay, we got some fun ones here with Land of Haunted Embers, a fast control, but it adds a blight. Reaching Grasp, it's a utility, 0 cost, off element. Rouse the Trees, 2 damage, push an Explorer on element, 1 energy. And Promises, 0 cost, perfect element, moving Dahan. So looking at the effect, I said control is the most important thing. But the problem is that control for stone. But the problem is that control comes with a negative, a blight, which makes this control card fairly bad, and it makes me quite sad. So probably not going to take that. Reaching Grasp, effect is terrible. It is nice that we can increase that right innate, but because it's off, or increase the range on the right innate, but because it's off element, it's going to delay when that right innate is getting hit. So it makes me sad as well. So we actually are left with 2 earth cards, so at least we're playing on element, but now we need to factor the effect versus the cost. Now, do we want fast Dahan movement? That's a perfect element, 0 cost, or would we want rouse? Well, I would say the split is probably around, it's probably close to 80-20. Rouse is a really powerful card here, just because 2 damage kills a town, and then you get to push the Explorer. So this is a card that can solve lands for you. It does suck that it requires a sacred site. Well, I guess they both require sacred sites. But the no targeting blight lands could be somewhat problematic, but because it's essentially 3 damage, it lines up really well into this adversary. Promises, the Dahan movement is very helpful, but this is a card, like we already have Dahan movement with Jagged Shards, and we really don't need fast Dahan movement. So likely what I would do is I would grab Rouse here, and like based on this set of Explorers, what I would do is turn 1, I'd play Jagged Shards, pushing a Dahan into here, letting this build, and then the following turn, so I'd place a presence here. Actually, I'd put it here. In the following turn, I'd create a Sacred Site here, so that I could absorb this Blight. So it would look like, let's say it builds like this. Let's say the Explorer's Jungle, and I played Jagged Shards turn 1. So I would throw the Badlands here, pushing the Dahan. Actually, I would do that here, so I can group up the Dahan like this. And then I would, so then that would pass. Then the next turn I'd play Stubborn, plus Rouse. I'd be able to fully defend this mountain, and then I would have Rouse, which would line up perfectly for either the Wetland Explorer or the Sand Explorer. It would just completely solve the land, and then I'd plan on Reclaim looping. I'll have to take a Blight here from the Blight card, but I've solved both of my mountains, and Rouse is going to give me that tech to solve this wetland. All right, let me load up another Spirit here. Okay, I've loaded up Fangs. I'm not the best Fangs player, but once again, we'll be following the effects, followed by cost, followed by elements. And one last thing before I start drafting, all because I gave you guys an ordering, that doesn't mean you always follow the ordering. Sometimes you may need a specific element, and that's all you need, and that's okay. But that's just kind of my hierarchy when I'm drafting in general. Okay, so we have Fangs. Once again, we're looking for effects. Called Isolation, 0 cost, push a bunch of stuff, or push a Dahan, and it has an animal. Promises, we just talked about this card. Weep, we talked about this card as well, I believe. Fear, push stuff in the slow, deals with blighted lands, animal, and elusive ambushes. It's a 1 damage fast or defend for it. This is actually an excellent draft for Fangs, because I could see an argument for probably not promises, but really these 3 cards I could see. Now with Fangs, really what we want to be doing is drafting cards to deal with blighted lands. If we're playing base Fangs, we're going to have trouble with our left innate hitting blighted lands. So any effect that can deal with those lands is going to be huge. Another thing with Fangs is your energy economy is so tight, you need to prioritize 0s versus 1s. So elusive ambushes is likely going to be the odd man out. Now we are playing we are playing against Scotland 6 here, and Jungle is the starting explorer. Now we have some very interesting choices here. I think, yeah, this is very interesting how I would play this out. I really think you can't go wrong with either of these, especially since Weep solves this land for you. It's that you want to be able to solve your blighted lands, and it does. Part of me wants to grab Called ISO just because Called ISO is one of the best cards in the entire game. So I would likely grab Called ISO here, and then I would try to probably use that on my H1, and then I would try to maybe pocket my H5, or I would take the Blight there, something along those lines. Let's do one more draft here. Okay, we have Domesticated, a defend 5, Devouring Ants, deals damage, Infested Aquifers, allows me to add Disease, and Unquenchable Flame deals a single point of damage and can add Badlands. So, once again, drafting for the effect. We know Defend is king. It just so happens that this card also lines up with our elements, and it can add beasts. So, it's 100% Domesticated. Draft another one. Okay, this will be our last draft. We have Sap, which is a defend 5, 0 energy, and has an element. Scour the land, kill a bunch of towns and explorers, adds a blight. Call to guard, 0 cost. Gather Dahan, defend, and Thriving Choke Fungus can add disease and badlands. 2 of these cards are defend cards. That means they are very important effects. They're also 0 cost, so they check off our 2 boxes. One of them is on element, one of them is not. I would like to draft Sap just because it's on element and it can fit really well with our spirit. If you like this video, like, subscribe for more content. I will see you guys in the next video.